1, Representative Riley.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to override the veto of the governor on Senate Bill 2481 and concur with the Senate.
Representative Breen is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Sponsor in the case he will yield.
Representative, I understand the idea of moving from the $100,000 current limit, which was set in the 1970s, as I understand it, to a larger number. But how did you arrive at $2 million?
Well, very simply, actually. One of the things that we did was we looked at all of the cap limits from state to state. As you might know, it might be in your analysis, Illinois was one of the lowest. We're in the lowest 5. Basically, we range from our $100,000 up to about $2 million. That's 33 states, if you're rank ordering them, 33 states. The other 17 states have no cap at all. Now that's a wide range, and if you look at that range, the difference between $175,000 and a little bit over $2 million is about $1.9 million by itself. Increasing it to $2 million, we would still be in the lower part of the third quartile of all the states. We're in previous testimony, someone said, well, can we look at the median? Can we look at the mean? Well, essentially, those 17 states that have no cap, the award could be unlimited. So you wouldn't look at the mean in that case because you would have those high values based on whatever they settle with someone, applying for recompense. So the $2 million is, like I said, right around the midpoint of all of the states that actually have caps. The other thing, too, is we had a meeting, and many people don't know that, of people from the Court of Claims, representatives from the Senate on the Republican side, and members of all of the parties. It was a teleconference, and that's why it is a well thought out and bipartisan bill, because we got together before the introduction of my bill, and we came up with the $2 million. My original bill had no cap at all. So this bill is basically a compromise, and a compromise with everyone, every actor who plays a part in a case coming before the Court of Claims.
Now, is your bill also then change the case law in the Court of Claims that in a death or a personal injury claim, there are multiple claimants, the estate, the spouse, the dependents, etc., because under the prior number of 100,000, it didn't matter quite as much that you could have multiple claimants. But now each of those claimants is going to be in for $2 million, and so you've got a much, not just a somewhat increase, but a multiple increase in final claims against. Because when I see Kentucky at 250, I see Indiana at 700, I see Missouri at 300. Our neighboring states either have lower limits, and I'm assuming they allow for this multiple claim thing that we do, or if it's uncapped, I'm also presuming that they've fixed this issue that is a little bit of a workaround for our 100,000, that there can be multiple claimants on the same injury.
Well, my bill basically what it does is it increases that tort limit cap for non-automobile accidents, first of all. Second of all, it adds some operational efficiencies to the Court of Claims. Other than that, it really doesn't change existing statute really that much. And frankly speaking, one of the problems when you compare surrounding states, they're not Illinois. They don't have almost 13 million people. They don't have 37 Fortune 500
they're taking more and more of our people from us every day, and so we don't have 13 million people anymore, Representative. We're down to 12.9. 12.9 and lowering. So really, our neighboring states aren't a bad barometer because they're our people are fleeing to those neighboring states.
Representative Breen, as you know, this bill, what inspired me to come up with this bill was the unfortunate deaths, which maybe could have been preventable, out of the Quincy Veterans Home. I would say that since we introduced this bill and passed it on a bipartisan fortune, and with 79 votes, essentially, we found out a lot of information about what happened at the Quincy Veterans Home. And matter of fact, WBEZ Radio in Chicago.
Representative, I supported your original bill because I had understood it to be a starting point for negotiation, not a giveaway to the plaintiff's personal injury lawyers. And so now I'm looking at it going, hey, how about the increased cost to your providers, your road builders, et cetera, of now having to nearly triple the insurance coverage they're going to have to have? Have you done the cost analysis? Have you done the cost analysis for the road builders and the others on all the increased insurance costs?
Representative Breen, now that's for them to do.
So you have not.
Now, Representative Breen, let me answer, and I would think at this point, because we've gone a long way since May, that some of the shibboleths and things that have come up regarding this bill can basically be disposed of. We did a lot of those things before, and one of the things I want to stress is every case that comes before the Court of Claims is not successful for the plaintiffs. All we're doing is
But a lot of them are, and in fact, you get a set-off. So folks aren't even going to trial on many cases because they've got a limit. They realize the claim is above the limit, and so they say, hey, we're just going to pay you out, which is appropriate. So we are vastly increasing the amount of litigation. You're vastly increasing the liability by many multiples, not merely 20 times the current, but multiples of that because you've got multiple claimants on the same thing. And I'll go to the motion because I think the point has been made. We don't even know how much this bill is going to cost. All we know is it's going to cost us a lot. And yes, we know the personal injury lawyers are going to make out like bandits, which they tend to do anytime they come to the General Assembly. So what really is going to happen, though, is we will now spend more money that could have been spent on education, that could have been spent actually building the roads instead of paying off trial lawyers. Instead, we're going to send the money to them instead of using it for good purposes. So I would respectfully request a no vote on this until a negotiation can occur to have an appropriate Court of Claims system where you have consolidated claims, one claim at a higher than $100,000, but certainly not at $2 million limit. Right now, in this veto session in the waning days of the 100th General Assembly is the wrong time to address this. Please vote no, and let's work on this long term.
Chair recognizes Representative David Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Appreciate the patience. Question of the sponsor, please.
The sponsor indicates that he will yield.
Representative, when was the cap of 100,000 placed in statute?
I think it was around 1971, 1972.
Okay. And how does someone who suffers a tort in Illinois, how is it determined what the award would be when they go to the Court of Claims? You know what the process is?
Well, it's solely up to the Court of Claims. Of course, the Court of Claims is the body that hears any type of case where there's damages, against the state, where there's a payout. And you have to file your case. The case has to be heard. They have to find in your behalf. You have to win the case. And then it's up to them, based on their discretion, what that award could be. So that award could be $100,000.
So it's not,
or in this case, it could be more.
So it's not automatic that every tort claim before the Tort of Claims is going to be $2 million.
That's true. It's not automatic that they will, rule in the plaintiff's favor.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to the bill, if I may. Very quickly, if you look at saying the maximum amount goes from 100,000 to 2 million, that is indeed a big increase. And you say, oh my gosh, that's way too much. We don't need to be that high. And then if you compare the surrounding states, I will tell you this. The surrounding states, what they pay is irrelevant. Because unlike something else where somebody might try to claim a benefit in a surrounding state that, or in Illinois that is not available in a surrounding state, what we're talking about here is a tort, is an injury to someone. So somebody's not going to go to Indiana or Missouri to get injured because, or come to Illinois to get injured because our award is higher. Look at Iowa. Iowa has no limit whatsoever. Iowa's not a wild and woolly kind of state. So my contention is this. The fact that we're going from 100,000 to 2 million, yes, it's a big figure, but it's been over the course of 40-some years. And for a state like Illinois, $2 million is not out of the question. And to compare us with other states, again, I say, is irrelevant because look at what you're talking about. You are talking about a tort, an injury to an individual that's going to be determined at the Court of Claims of what that injury is worth and awarded to that person. And then I will come back and say, don't forget that the General Assembly has to provide and has to pass the appropriation for the Court of Claims every year, and that doesn't mean an automatic payment for somebody who gets the award. So I stand in support of the gentleman's bill and urge a yes vote.
Chair recognizes Representative Kifowit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the representative from Lombard, I would like to make him a broth of Legionella and pump it into the water system of his loved one so that they can be infected, they can be mistreated, they can sit and suffer by getting aspirin instead of being properly treated, and ultimately die. And we are talking about our nation's heroes. We are talking about World War II veterans that survived combat, survived war, survived unthinkable situations that they were put in to sit back, put their faith and trust in the state of Illinois, and have that completely, unabashedly disregarded. Now, in the words of our illustrious Department of Health Director Shaw, they stemmed the tide, is what they told the committee. Stem the tide on this situation, only to be revealed later in emails that he scoffed off giving a citation when stagnant, disgusting water to the tune of 1,600 gallons were pumped into the most fragile population of our veterans in the state of Illinois, and he scoffed it off and saying, I'm not going to issue a citation. I should. That would have been his job. I'm amazed this man still has a job, considering the neglect that was happening. So to sit back and say that the families of the 13 veterans and one veteran spouse who died, first of all, to purport that we're going to look at Indiana. I don't recall Indiana killing 13 veterans and one spouse, and sickening 70 others. In addition to that, we had people that put their faith to be working in a safe environment. And you know what? They got ill too. This is about fairness. This is about giving the families the justice they deserve. This is an amount that was negotiated with the Court of Claims. It's reasonable and it's fair, and it is just disgusting for the representative from Lombard to put such little value in the lives of our veterans who fought and served in the wars. This is a good bill. This is a bill that needs to be done. This is long overdue, and I respectfully ask for you to support this bill. Thank you very much.
Chair recognizes Representative Carroll.
Thank you. To the bill. I want to, first of all, compliment my colleague who just eloquently defended the veterans in our state and what they dealt with. And I also want to comment on the fact that I find it very interesting that we regularly vilify attorneys in the state for defending their clients. I don't understand why this has become an issue of personal injury attorneys and people that do things to defend people. When we talk about these situations, we're talking about things that are punishing the wrong people. If you have something that is committed against you, you should have the right to seek the proper compensation for it, not have it capped. And when I hear things like, well, this is going to cost more money to do this, it's going to cost more money to do that, it's going to drive business out of the state, well, I just found an interesting statistic today. We get criticized all the time for workman's comp insurance, correct? And the state of Wisconsin is supposedly this great place to do business. Well, in the state of Illinois, our workman's comp rate is now 22nd. The rates of workman's comp is now 22nd in the country. And in Wisconsin, it is 8. So can we please stop with shaming the business culture in our state by having these opportunities for people to get fair compensation for their injuries? And this is not, and this state-by-state thing and everything like that, well, you know, that's part of the process. So I really urge a yes vote on this bill. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Davidsmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Sponsor indicates they will yield.
Let me first say I have great respect for the sponsor, and I appreciate what you're trying to do here. Does this only deal with the issues that happened, the horrible issues that happened with the Quincy Veterans Home?
That was my inspiration. That was the genesis for the bill.
Does this only deal with the Quincy Veterans Home?
It deals with anyone under the state's custody and or care.
So any contract with the state of Illinois, correct?
Anyone that comes before the Court of Claims.
So, but any contract is going to have that kind of protection. So,
Whoa. Any contract? What does that have to do with a contract?
So if you're doing a sewer project for the state of Illinois, you're going to have make sure you have enough coverage to make sure that they cover $2 million.
I think you may be going far afield on that. Again. Jurisdiction of the Court of Claims. Someone filing, a plaintiff filing at the Court of Claims who has to win their case. And the Court of Claims then grants them some sort of award. That's all this bill is. That's all that it's saying. It doesn't say anything about what some company has to do. It's the Court of Claims, and essentially the bill gives them more discretion as to the award that they give. Nothing more, nothing less. That's the way it was in May. That's the way it is now.
If your goal is to help the folks that were affected at the Quincy Veterans Home, I think that we should focus on the issues that happened at the Quincy Veterans Home instead of an all-encompassing bill that has negative impact on other areas of business with the state of Illinois.
It's not going to have negative impact.
It won't?
We're all, no. This is an override motion. We've been through this when I argued this bill in May. We're going through it now. So nothing has changed with regard to this bill. Nothing. So whatever it is that you're talking about that may happen, which sounds like a slippery slope argument, well, that was the same way that it was in May. And I just don't think that this bill, the importance of it and what it's endeavoring to do, needs to go through this sort of harangue that we go through from time to time. This is veto session.
When this bill, just really quick, when this bill was sold to us back in May, it was sold to us as something that affects the Quincy Veterans Home, not an all-encompassing bill that affects all contracts with the state of Illinois, all business with the state of Illinois, anything that's done in the state of Illinois.
Representative Davidsmeyer, you had the same analysis in May that you do now. The bill has not changed.
Have you seen our analysis?
I'm sorry?
Have you seen our analysis?
No, I'm not privy to the Republican analysis, but I'm saying I'm sure that it's roughly the same, because the bill hasn't changed any. Again, this is a motion to override an amendatory veto.
I understand, but other issues can come up in the process. There's always unintended consequences, and that was something that many people did not understand, that this affects way more than just the Quincy Veterans Home. If we were talking about the Quincy Veterans Home, you'd have 118 yes votes up there. But we're not just talking about the Quincy Veterans Home. We're not talking about just veterans.
Yeah.
We're talking about all business in the state of Illinois.
If you look at I don't see any place in that bill where it talks about what businesses have to do. It is very simple in terms of what this bill says. Very simple. And that's it. There's no slippery slope. There's nothing. They have written so many things on this bill, both in the media, print, and broadcast. I mean, everything about this bill is out there and has been out there for a long time.
Okay, to the bill, as I said, I do respect the sponsor, but I think that he's using a horrible tragedy at the Quincy Veterans Home to try to ram these increased limits on the rest of the state of Illinois, and I think it's just wrong. I think that we need to think twice before we move a bill like this.
Chair recognizes Representative Ives.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a serious matter here, as we have a Democrat colleague who essentially wished death on our Republican floor speaker. How dare you? How dare you concoct up some sort of story about brewing up some batch of Legionnaires and having him feed it to his family? How dare you take the discussion and the debate about a very serious bill that has huge cost consequences on both sides, oh, by the way, both for the victim and the state taxpayer. How dare you take an honest debate about an issue and then wish death on my colleague Peter Breen, his wife, and his 2 adopted kids? It is unbelievable. Unbelievable, but it's just par for the course, because this is exactly what we saw in the election cycle. Oh, there you go, Peter Breen and my buddy Tom Morrison, father of 4. Yeah, they support child predators. Yeah, that's what you guys think. That's the kind of garbage you spew into people's minds. You're taking a serious issue and you're wishing death on colleagues and then smearing everybody else. And then what do you guys do on the other side? You clap. Oh yeah, we agree. Peter Breen and his family should die. Oh, and then Mr. Carroll gets up there too and then says, yeah, you know, I agree with the eloquent words of my colleague. Really? Really? We can't discuss an issue here without you guys wishing death on Republicans? It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. You talk about the divisiveness in our political sphere, and this is why it is. The lies, the innuendos, the overreach, the vilifying of colleagues on a debatable issue. How dare you? How dare you do that to my colleague, Peter Breen? He deserves an apology by all of you.
Representative Riley to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Excuse me, Representative. Can we maintain order in the chamber? Please, 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 can we maintain? Representative Al Riley to close.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, let me, since I have the floor, let me have a little bit of license. We're all a little bit better than this. This bill means a lot to me and a lot to a lot of people around the state. I've been in parades where people were talking about this bill passing. been to my own VFW post, American Legion post, talk about this bill. There may be people opposed to the bill, but attack the bill. You can speak to the bill. It was said by someone who spoke on the other side, I'm trying to ram this bill through, and I'm trying to use the unfortunate then you don't know me at all. And as I say, all of that stuff that we say, and if you pass this bill, you're gonna get warts on your hand and all that kind of stuff. This bill doesn't deserve that. If you're against it, say why you're against it. But don't engage in all of that nonsense trying to do this. This bill got 79 votes when I passed it before. This bill got more votes in the Senate when it came back over than it got originally. The bill is what it is. Let's not make it what it isn't. Let's not use the amorphous taxpayer. Well, the 13 people who died were taxpayers too. They're not paying taxes anymore. And their families are taxpayers. Don't do that kind of stuff with this bill. Vote it up or vote it down. This is a bill whose time has come. It gives extra discretion to settlements by the Court of Claims. It changes really an egregious base. Somebody the last time that I argued the bill in May says, well, hey, let's come up with the consumer price index, and I think it came up to $700,000. Well, that's great. That's fine. But all you're doing is extending an egregious base. Now, I told you before, I told everybody, that this bill was agreed upon by all of the parties. Matter of fact, a good friend of mine used to serve in this body, Senator Connolly, was on the phone, along with the Senate sponsor, someone from the Court of Claims, somebody from the Secretary of State. Now, how often do we do that on any measure? And they basically made me change my bill, but they convinced me from no cap at all, so we could be the 18th state, to having that cap. We did the research. We did all of those things, and everybody knows that we did. So this is a bill whose time has come. Its time has come. Something else was said about attorneys. Look, remember I said, and you can look it up, my bill had no cap at all. When I came up with the bill and then we made the revisions, the first people that I went to was not some organization. It was my colleagues here. My colleagues here. I went to Representative Kifowit. I went to Representative Costello. I went to Representative Harris. Now, we all have something in common. We're all veterans. I went to them first. How do you feel about this? And then the organization that someone mentioned came later and said, hey, we'd like to support the bill, et cetera, et cetera. Again, let's not do this type of thing. Now I'm retiring. I'm not going to be here with you in the 101st. But one of the ways that you can ensure that we don't have a large amount of suits against the state is to fully fund those departments that have an oversight. That's one way you can do it. Fully fund them so that people can go out and do their due diligence and make sure that, again, people under our custody, don't die because of something that could have been prevented. So again, ladies and gentlemen, I would hope that you would join me in overriding the veto for this bill again. The people want it, the families definitely want it. We all wanted it by our vote in May. So for the sake of the people, let's think about respect and recompense. Vote aye. Thank you.
The question is, Shall Senate Bill 2481 pass, notwithstanding the governor's specific recommendations for change? This motion requires 71 votes. All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted to wish? Have all voted to wish? Have all voted to wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record. On the count of 71 voting in favor, 36 voting opposed, and 0 voting present, Senate Bill 2481, having received the constitutional majority, the motion to override prevails, and Senate Bill 2481 is declared passed, notwithstanding the governor's recommendations for change.